Yes, my name is Michelle Lopez, and it's spelled Michelle, and the last name Lopez, Lopez. How's that?
Let me just, is that, yeah, that's on, this one is on, I can't,
You're not hearing me?
no. Can you say it again?
My name is Michelle Lopez, Michelle. Lopez is spelled Lopez.
And what did you do today?
Oh, I was up this morning. I was babysitting.
Oh, now I
Because-
know. I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you.
Uh-huh. You see what it is here?
Yeah, let me see. Sorry.
Uh-oh. No? No, connected here.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Sometimes it's the little things you forget.
Yeah.
Okay, now it should be fine. I'm gonna, Alicia, if I sit here,
Oh yeah.
and how is the frame?
Yeah, it looks perfect.
Can I say? Can you sit here?
Oh.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I think we're ready, right?
Yeah, another sound check.
Sound check?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Michelle Lopez. Michelle is spelled Michelle, and Lopez is spelled Lopez.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay. Let's get rolling.
Okay, so can you just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Michelle Lopez. I am a 51-year-old woman that I've been diagnosed. In fact, I have an AIDS diagnosis. I was diagnosed while I tested HIV positive in 1990. Right after birth of my daughter, I was not aware of my status or even hers as a baby. I was living in a domestic violence situation, very severe, being beaten every day. And one particular night, I think I got the worst beating. I always talk about that. It was the worst beating, but it was the best because I left the home and I started riding the trains with my newborn baby. She was newborn. I needed to get away, and I got on the trains, and I had no idea where I was going to go. I had no idea where I was going to end up, but through me switching trains, because this was the nighttime, and I kept switching trains. I'm a person also too. I'm very spiritual. I was praying. And the last train that I switched to, I saw this ad on the train, and it says, if you're a woman and you're having to deal with substance use, domestic violence, call this number. If you're an immigrant, that was also too on the ad. Call this number and we will give you help. Oh my God. I got off the train. I started out my journey at that time when I started, and I left the house because I was out in Queens. The train that I ended up on brought me all the way into Brooklyn, and I got off the train. I think it had to be after 9 that morning. When I came upstairs in the train station, I was at the corner of Flatbush Avenue and Nevins, which is downtown Brooklyn. I called the number on the ad, and somebody really did answer the phone. A voice answered the phone. It was a woman. She told me that she's a nurse And I told her I just saw the ad on the train and I just broke down. I mean, from crying and just, I told her what has happened in my life, and I just started, again, just pouring my heart out. And she asked me where was I, and I says, at the corner of Flatbush Avenue and Nevin Street, downtown Brooklyn. She said, Miss, if you turn around and you face east, I am 5 blocks away from where you were standing talking to me. Seriously. I turned around. I walked down to the center. At the time, the name of that facility, they were called Community Family Planning Council. 2 years into me becoming a client, the agency then changed their name to Community Healthcare Network, and I was offered a job. The reason why I was offered a job, I was placed in a shelter that same night. After going down to the center and speaking to the nurse, they did an intake on me and asked me if I would like to be seen by a doctor, myself and the baby, because of the situation and the things that I shared with them. They said to me, we can give you a full physical today, and would you mind if we offer you an HIV test? We would like to test you and the baby. Excuse me. I looked at them and I said, why do you all want to test a woman and a baby for HIV? I said, we're not gay. I mean, it's only gay men. And the nurse looked at me and she said, this is one of the reasons why we put that ad on the trains. There's a lot of women who have been exposed to HIV, and because of situations that's going on in your life, this baby might have been exposed. We don't know. But because of the things you shared, I would say also too, I was given a full physical that day, and I was walking around with gonorrhea and had no idea that I was infected also too with gonorrhea. The household, again, the DV, the man that I was with at that time, that was the person that infected me with gonorrhea. He was not the person that infected me with HIV. I got tested, myself and the baby, that day. We were placed in a shelter. I then had to move into a shelter, and this organization is what we call a federally qualified health center. They then offered me to enroll into care. I had no health insurance. I had this baby. She was 9 months, going on 10 months. I never had postpartum medical because of my immigrant status. I just had Medicaid at the time, and that was just for my pregnancy. So once she was 2 months after into the pregnancy, the Medicaid was turned off. So I had no health insurance. The organization at that time had just received a funding to help women with the profile that I came in there with. Homeless women, women who were dealing with substance use, women, immigrant women who had no health insurance, who were not engaged in care. So they were also to, because of their family planning services that they offered, they were then, what they did, they had integrated HIV testing and counseling into their programs because, again, of the issues that they saw women coming through their doors or what they were offering, and fit the profile. So I got into care right away, and I gotta say it was very, very traumatic for me. Not just receiving this diagnosis, but knowing, because of my immigrant status, I was really, really fearful that at that time I also too, I had a son, and my son at the time was not with me per se. My sister and my mom, they were both taking care of my son at that time, because again of the situation that I was living in. So when I tested positive, I did call my sister and I told her I have something in confidence to tell you. Please don't tell Mom. Please don't tell us it, because I don't know how long me and this baby is going to be here. And what did she do? She told my mom. So here is my mom. She calls me and she said to me, I'm going to keep your son because I don't want him exposed to what it is that you and your baby have. And, I got to be honest, she really didn't know back then. None of us knew. So I agreed and I allowed them to keep my son. And I remained in the shelter. Myself and the baby, we got into care right away while I was living in the shelter, because we lived in the shelter for almost a year. I couldn't get any assistance because of me being the head of the household, and I didn't have a legal status at that time. So the organization, Community Healthcare Network, actually, I really have to say it was a couple of organizations, well, that played a part in bringing services together, helping me as an immigrant woman, because one of the first things that Community Healthcare Network did, because I started volunteering while I was living in the shelter, I would get up every day, go to the clinic, put together what we call information packets about the services that this agency was offering. I mean, I was in shock that I was getting help, because of my situation. So I decided I'm going to just go out and speak to women out in the community. Let them know I disclosed my status to people who I never knew. And I said to them, I remember going into this laundromat one day and speaking to a group of women, and they said, "Aren't you scared?" I said, "Scared of what?" They said, "You're not scared of telling people you have this disease because, did you notice some of the ladies walked away? They don't want to be around people who have this disease." I said, "From what I learned, you cannot get this disease casually. And I'm trying. The reason why I came out here and I'm having these conversations and I'm doing this, I don't want other women to go through this. I don't want another woman to have to deal with what I'm dealing with, and I would share my personal stories. Come to find it, these women that I was reaching out to in the community really was taking my information, and they would go to the facility where I was speaking to them about, and they would ask to be tested. And they got into services and they got into care. So 2 years of me being with this agency, I lived in the shelter, as I said, for almost a year. I was offered a job. And the CEO had my case manager bring me one day down to their executive office, excuse me, and never forget her. She says, "I know you're probably scared." She said, "Yes, I am the CEO of this organization." She says, at that time they had like 8 centers throughout New York. She says, "I've never heard of someone like you." She says, "And I want to offer you a job." I said, "I cannot work." I said, "Miss, I'm going to be honest with you. The times that I've been here, I've been living in this country here. I don't have a green card." She said, "Well, I'm going to take you over into the next room." She said, "I have all of my managers there in that room. And I want you to tell every one of them, I'm going to tell you who is the manager of the medical you're getting here, who is the manager of social services." She says, "And I also, too," she said, "I have someone. He is the person that writes the grants for this agency." I mean, something I would admit to, I have a very high IQ. And, I realized, really, I put my mind to things and it works for me. I can do some wondrous things once I put my mind to work. So I told her, I said, "I can't work." She says, "You need to be paid." She said, "I'm offering you a job. And when you go in that room, I want you to tell every one of those people I introduced to you how or what they can do to help somebody like you." I got in that room and I just really just started speaking to them, where I'm from, what I've been going through, and, why is it that I'm doing what it is that I do. And I got to say, what came out of that, the CEO, she said to her, I remember her director of social services, "I want you to call GMHC." GMHC, Gay Men's Health Crisis. They're still in existence. It was one of the first organizations that helped me establish a legal status so that I could remain in the United States. Because back then, when you were diagnosed HIV positive, and based on what was going on, with my diagnosis at the time, GMHC had a legal division, and what they were doing, they were establishing a legal status for anyone who were diagnosed positive, but they had, serious medical complications. while I was in the shelter, I did actually contracted. And they said what happened was because of where I was living at before the household, there was cats, and I was staying in a basement. And the basement, the cats and they, incidentally, the cats and they had a disease called toxo. And if you're someone who had HIV and you were exposed to these cats, because I used to clean the litter and feed them and stuff, I developed toxoplasmosis. And my CD4 at the time, it came down. It came down to 96. And me being hospital, I had to be hospitalized then. I thought I was going to lose my daughter. My parents, my mom already had my son, and I couldn't. It's like I just could not see myself, dying, because I remember my mom came up to visit with me, now ending up in the hospital. My mom came to visit, and she had my son, and she brought my daughter with her for them to see me at the hospitals. And I remember I had like a really bad fever, and I had all these tubes connected onto me because, they were trying to treat I guess to help me with the toxoplasmosis. And when I saw my kids just looked so sad. And I didn't feel as if they were really being taken care of. I think my kids and they were, I felt like I'm on my way out dying, and I felt as if like my family had given up. And the next day, this was after my mom left with my children, my doctor came to do rounds, just to tell me what's going on. And I said to her, I said, take these tubes away from me. I said, take them off from me. She said, Michelle, you have a really bad fever, and this infection you have, you can die if we, just send you home. I said, I'm not going to die. I said, I'm going to live. I said, my children needs me. I said, and because of the health insurance and because of the complications I had, again, I don't know where these notions came into my head. I looked at my doctor and I said, you can call visiting nurse services and they can do a follow-up care with me at home. I said, but I got to go home and take care of my kids. I'm not dying like this. And the doctor, I think she knew what was going on. About 2 days after, she unplugged me from the tubes, and they did get VNS, and I was sent home, and I made a promise to myself. I said, I'm not going to die. I said, I'm going to be here, and I'm going to take care of my kids, and I'm going to fight to live, because I started building a community. I started just befriending people, and then I learned about ACT UP from my case manager, and I just started going down to meetings that they were having. And one of the nights while I was there at a meeting, I didn't die. They asked on the floor, we are looking for women, who are living with this disease, women, who wants, who wants to fight, we got your back. I remember the guys on the floor saying this, we have your back, and we're going to help you. And I remember I got up and I said, look, I said, I'm a woman living with this disease. I says, but I have a daughter also too. And the doctors, and they told me, she is infected. She's not going to, seroconvert. I says, and what is it? Why do you all, need women? And they said, we want to train some women and get them to go and testify before the Food and Drug Administration. I said, what? I said, I can't do that. I said, I'm an immigrant. They said, yes, you can. They said, why can't you? I said, because I don't have a green card. I just have a status to remain here. They said, that's all we need to know. Do you want to do it? They said, we're going to work with you.
I'm just going to interrupt.